Hello and welcome back to the W Basketball Show. I'm your host Lukas, and I will be just by myself today, looking at the next few weeks of the WNBL season, the run home, and kind of making sense of everything that's been going on lately, because I feel like things are moving and shaking. There's a huge divide between the top three and the bottom five. Going to touch on the top three a little bit, but the bulk of this episode will be the bottom five. If you hear any cars or trams or anything, then I do apologize. It's currently 34 degrees in Melbourne, and it just says fire weather. It doesn't even say sunny or overcast or anything. It just says fire weather. And my place has no cooling, so I'll also probably keep this brief. But yeah, it's the run home. It's the last 3 weeks of the WNBL season. I feel like most teams, let me get it up, have 4 games to go, and the top 2 teams actually are the only 2 teams that only have 3 games to go. But they're pretty sorted in there. I mean, between those 3 teams, being the Bendigo Spirit, the Perth Lynx, and the Townsville Fire, they're a combined 14-1 in their last 5, and they're finishing the season really strong. Bendigo, I feel as though they've been just excellence all season long. Strong start to the season, was at 9-0 before getting those 2 fateful losses, and since then they've been 7-0, landing them at a very attractive 16-2 record, really leading the competition. I feel like just strong across the board, both ends of the court. They're getting more and more contributors as the season goes on. It appears. And I think the most impressive thing is that they've just maintained it. You know, those 2 losses, I guess we could call them a slip up. At the time, I remember feeling like it could unfold, but the fact that they've just, realigned their season, and they're well on their way to another 9-game winning streak. And 2 9-game winning streaks in a 21-game season that's ridiculous. That means you're going to have a near perfect season. In second, Perth, they're keeping on their play style from last season. Letitia Amahia has slid into that big role perfectly. She provides something completely different from Emily Potter from last season, and she's just fit in so well. The rest of that lineup, I mean, you're probably looking at the best starting lineup in the league. At least that's what I'm seeing. I feel like there's the most elements, and there's a lot of players and actors that bring themselves to those elements. And then Ryan Petrick just has this, all guns ablazing, let's go. But also, let me empower my players, and let me give them the control, let me make them the playmakers. And it makes them pretty deadly, especially offensively. But I think the story for Perth will be how they bounce back after last year's finals against Southside, because that could have been pretty damaging. That was a pretty rough way to lose a final series. You win game 1, you're drawn 95 at the end of game 2. You have, I feel like it was 2 or 3 golden opportunities, a wide open fast break layup, a couple of free throws at the end there, and then Mercedes Russell hits that turnaround to beat you in game 2, and then game 3 was just a blowout. It'll be interesting to see how they go in the postseason this year. I'll be rooting them on. They're a very fun team to watch. Amy Atwell is finally she's fully. There's no more. It feels like there's no more real niggles. It feels like she's healthy and firing, and she'll only be getting healthier as we near the finals. But I feel like Townsville are the only team that have really not exactly turned their season around. I feel like they were always in the midst or in the upper half. But over the last half of the season, they've really rallied and showed who they've been over the last decade or however long it's been. I think Courtney Woods, for me, has been the standout player across the season. Not to be the not necessarily the MVP, but she's really been she was coming off the bench last season, and now she stepped into a starting role, and she hasn't really. It doesn't look like she's feeling any pressure in that role. she's a great leader. She's really just stepped into the role of being a leader on this team, and she's doing it so gracefully. And yeah, it just feels like she's not really the sort of player whose game is predicated on stats. Like, it's more, let's just make the right play for the team. But her stat lines have been pretty ridiculous throughout the season. I mean, she's averaging 16, 6, and 6 with a steal and a half a game on pretty solid percentages. Those are elite numbers. And yeah, she's really not a numbers sort of player. And that coming off the bench last season really didn't have anything to do with her. Like, if your team has Steph Reed and Sammy Whitcomb in the WNBL, they're the starting backcourt. I don't know if there's a single team in the league this season where they don't take those starting roles. It's been nice to see Woods just step into that starting role. Sorry, 3 trams just passed, and I'm not sure where exactly I cut it, but Courtney Woods really is the number one player on this team. The number one leader on this team, and I think the best thing that's come out of the last half of the season is that Townsville have established themselves as a contender, and there are now 3 contenders in the league: Bendigo, Perth, and Townsville. Like, any one of them could win the championship. I feel like if you asked me halfway through the season, I'd say it'd be between Bendigo and Perth, but Townsville have showed that they are in that tier, and that all 3 of Bendigo, Perth, and Townsville, they'll have to go through each other. That 2-3 matchup, which will likely be Perth hosting Townsville, but you never know. It could be Townsville hosting Perth. That's going to be, you're really going to have to earn your spot in the finals, and then following on from that, the finals are just going to be electric. These teams will have to go through each other, so setting up for a really nice finals, especially that top 3. I feel like this episode will be more about the bottom 5 teams, because that 4th spot is still active for every single team, which is crazy to think. Even the Southside Flyers, who are 4-13 currently, very unlikely, but mathematically possible for them to finish the season in the finals. So those 5 teams are the Sydney Flames, the Canberra Capitals, the Geelong United, Adelaide Lightning, and the Southside Flyers. Those first 3 teams, Sydney, Canberra, and Geelong, are all sitting on 6-11. Adelaide is currently 5-12, and Southside is 4-13. I really think that 4th spot will come down to Canberra and Geelong. One of those 2 teams going through. Sydney has just lost their form. I saw them in Geelong a few weeks ago whenever they visited, and that looked like a team. They got beaten in the 3rd quarter, and they never looked like they were going to come back. Like, I don't know, the posture of the team wasn't a team that's looking to make the finals. It felt like a team that was happy to throw the towel in a game that they needed to win. Like, even though they were down by a pretty insurmountable lead, they didn't carry themselves as a team that's going to make it to the finals. Sorry, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself there. There are a few permutations with 3 rounds to go of the bottom 5 teams playing each other, and they are as follows: Canberra versus Sydney, Geelong versus Canberra, Southside versus Adelaide, Canberra versus Sydney, Adelaide versus Geelong. So, in these last 3 rounds, Southside has 1 more game against the bottom 5 team. Adelaide, Sydney, and Geelong have 2, and Canberra has 3. As for Sydney, both of their games are against Canberra in Canberra, and the way these 2 teams are trending could not be more opposite. Canberra 4-1 in their last 5. Sydney's the inverse, 1-4. Canberra's recent form has really felt like the catapult they've been waiting on for the past 2 seasons. I feel like I've really enjoyed watching them play. They have a genuine superstar in Jade Melbourne, who, there's an MVP pick. But the thing that they just weren't able to do was find a way to win games, finish games, close out games. That last 5-ish minutes of the game. And now they've found a really good run of form, and I think they've seen wins in a few different ways, and I think they're learning how to win now, and I think this is great for the WNBL. honestly, as long as Jade Melbourne's in Canberra, that team is only going to trend upwards. And the more experience she gets, and the older she grows and the longer she develops and grows into her prime player and prime build, this team is going to be either contending or, in a down season, I would imagine them being like 10 and 11. But yeah, I think that's been a huge win for the league this season, is Canberra finding a way to get wins and putting together a good stretch of basketball. But yeah, Sydney, this is now 2 seasons in a row where it feels like the outcome of their season's been affected by injury. Last season, we barely saw Shanice Swain. I feel like Kayla was in and out. Tess Madgen was in and out. I feel like... Or maybe Paige Bradley was coming off the bench to start the season and then she came into her own. But it felt like they were impacted by injury last season. This season, Michaela Roof, Emma Clark, they've missed considerable time. But I just think it's becoming a trend. I feel like other teams in the league are able to get their players healthy and on the court, and it's starting to feel like it might be the team's responsibility to make sure their players are healthy during the season. I think they're the most well-resourced team in the league. They generate a lot of interest and they put a lot into their team. But we need to put those two things together because the fans want to see the best product of what Sydney is investing in their team. So I think next season, health needs to come first. I don't know what that comes down to. I'm merely just a self-proclaimed expert. But that has to be at the top of their priorities for next season. And it really feels like they aren't, even though they're one of the teams at 6 and 11, it feels like they aren't going to finish the season in that 4th spot.
The NBA moves so quickly these days, it's hard to keep up. Shams and Woj are breaking stories left and right, but the Quick Time Out is right there with them to keep you informed on the latest NBA news. Stop in and let us break it down as it happens. Find the Quick Time Out on the Deep 2 Podcast Network.
Southside, Perth's dancing partner from the finals last season, they are last. They are last with a record of 4-13. Huge changes from year to year. Your front court goes from Mercedes Russell and Lauren Jackson to Naz Hillman and Alice Kinneck. That's a massive difference. Those are 2 sets of completely different play styles. And then head coaching change from Cheryl Chambers to Christy Harrower. So the complexion of this team has just been turned on its head. And even though they won the championship last year, this team is completely different. But yeah, in winning that championship, they've definitely earned some grace. They deserve, some understanding from the fans. And yeah, going into a new season with a different coach after winning the finals, that's a huge challenge. That's not a challenge for everyone. Going into a season with the same coach that won the finals is hard enough. So with all these changes, it's, that's compounded. And yeah, I think Maddie Rocci, incredible. She's an incredible example of the point guard being an extension of the coach and the coaching staff on the court. I feel like she'd fully immersed herself in implementing Coach Chambers' game plan. And yeah, the two of them were connected. They were on a string. So it'll take some time to adjust to a new coach. Yeah, especially when your team's changed a lot and the rest of the league is quite strong this season. So I'm happy to say this is a mulligan for the Flyers, and I won't hold this season against them, and I truly believe they'll come back stronger next season. And another thing to note, I think Beck Cole is the most consistent contributor. She is exactly Beck Cole every night, and that's such an important person to have on your basketball team. That it's not only in the way she impacts the game with her energy, but it's really hard to produce every night, and she does, and she notices when her team needs her to take the lead, or when nothing's going, she really takes it upon herself and she produces very consistently, which is not always the case. Like, sure, at some point you're going to have a bad shooting night or the ball's just not going to go in the ring. But Beck Cole has so many elements to her game that she finds a way to make an impact and keep pressure on the scoreboard, whether that's with a stop or with a make. Adelaide. I don't know, man. They don't have the depth to go the distance of a game with the way the WNBL is made up right now. They have a great starting lineup. You know, I said Perth's the best starting lineup in the league, and I feel comfortable in saying that. Adelaide should be one of the 2 best starting lineups in the league. If you have Brianna Turner, Steph Talbot, Isabel Borlase, and, you know, they're there from last season as well in the starting lineup, you bring in Japrice Dean, who's been an incredible contributor, like such a solid import. Oh, and that's an indictment on me. Veronica Burton, to circle back to the Bendigo Spirit. I actually didn't mention any of their players, but she has been tremendous this season. And it'll be interesting to see how she takes that play to the Golden State Valkyries. And stay tuned, W listeners. I'm going to post a video breakdown of the Golden State Valkyries hopefully soon. It's my first time giving a video a go, so I actually have no idea how long it's going to take. But let's say hopefully by the end of February, and hopefully in the next week or two. But yes, back to Adelaide. Izzy Bourne, I feel like she's a pretty good plug-and-play wing position. Japrice Dean has been a great import. Steph Talbot, Isabel Borlase, don't need to speak on them any more than, whoever's listening to this knows who they are. And then Brianna Turner really showed herself. She's always shown herself as a very toolsy, helpful player in the WNBA. She moved over to the WNBL and brought that exact same player to the WNBL. She's not too preoccupied with scoring, but she makes everything happen for her team. You know, great playmaker, incredible defender, great on the glass, great competitor. So you got that team can't be second last. You know, I don't know what needs to change. The depth definitely needs to be improved, needs to be bolstered. I don't know if it's a coaching issue. I'm not comfortable saying that. I would say the depth needs to definitely improve. But a team with a starting lineup that's that good, and I want to say good enough coaching, can't be second last in the league. I'm not sure what the next few years is going to look like, but changes definitely need to be made. Geelong fans, I'll have more in store for next episode, because I'm going to both the games this round and this week. But from what I've seen from this team, both on screen and in person, I feel like they're better than what you'd assume out of a 6-11 team. Seeing this team in person, they carry themselves with a confidence. I feel like I want to give most of that credit to Jazz Shelley, because she really plays very freely and very confidently, and she fully believes in every decision she makes, and she gets to different spots around the court. She defends extremely hard and just competes on every possession. And I feel like she really sets that tone. And you really don't see the value of a playmaker until you see them in person. I feel like just being able to set up the court for their team on offense, but then also on D, bringing it to the other team's playmaker. But yeah, she really is driving this team. Hayley Jones, you can put her at any position of the court, and she's gonna impact the game in a positive way. Alex Sharp has really changed the geometry of the court, and it's really benefited the team. And she again, like Hayley Jones, she's useful on every single possession. She's making a positive impact for the team. And Keely Froling is Keely Froling. And yeah, I feel like they're really setting themselves up well this year. I think the first year jitters are hitting them in waves, and in different parts of the season. But they've set themselves up well for the run home, and I think we have a strong chance of seeing them in the finals. So, yeah, I reckon it's going to be Canberra or Geelong. It's going to come down to one of those two for the last spot in the finals. I'm going to lean towards Canberra. But I'd be happy to see either of those teams in the finals. And sure, for this season, finishing fourth merely earns you the right to cop a shellacking from Bendigo. But I feel like this fourth place finish could really be a stepping stone for next season for whoever ends up in the finals. Because that's a huge distinction, ending the season in the finals and ending this season with the rest of the league, who has been quite, weak throughout the season. That's a clear distinction to be made, and that's a real incentive to earn that fourth spot and attach yourselves to the top four or the top three teams that have been incredible this season, rather than the rest of the pack. And yeah, only one team gets the chance to have a series against the best team in the league. Only one of those bottom five teams has that chance to come toe-to-toe to Bendigo. And you should just always be geared to win. So I think that the fourth spot is really going to be, like, these last 3 weeks should be the championship for these bottom five teams. And I will check in with you guys ahead of the finals for sure. I think once there's more clarity on who the top four teams will be, I'll check in with you guys, because I feel like we're really setting ourselves up for another great finals, another great postseason. But yeah, for this week, I'll leave us there, and I can't wait to talk to you again.